Good morning. My name is Melvin Caraway, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police. I'm honored to be with so many great Hoosiers today, so many great Americans, so many citizens of the world. Thank you all for being here today. We're here to honor the heroes of September 11th, 2001, those heroes that gave their all that others may live. Citizens just like folks, like you and I, that just a year ago felt the sun on their face, expecting, and rightly so, the fullness and joy of a new day. We celebrate their spirit this day. We celebrate and remember that spirit of freedom and love, that spirit that makes us strong in hard times, celebrating a spirit that has allowed us to build up what others have tried to tear down. It's our charge to not forget those lives. It's our charge to keep that spirit growing every day.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare of bombs bursting in air came through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
At least 343 firefighters lost their lives at the World Trade Center a year ago today. As these firefighters work to help the thousands of people inside the towers after the terrorist attacked our nation there in New York City. As you know, nearly 2,800 people perished in the two towers. In addition to the firefighters, 70 police officers died in the line of duty. 78 people are yet unaccounted for at the World Trade Center. Another 212 died either aboard an American aircraft or at the Pentagon. As we grieve for those lost, we must always remember that tens of thousands of others were saved in that terrible day. It was through the actions of brave Americans who found the courage to do more, to reach out to help in desperate times, to reach out in those moments of chaos. Some of those brave people survived this devastation, but far too many did not. Please remain standing. You'll be listening to the ringing of the firefighter's bell. Please remember all of those who served on duty that day, as well as those who are on the line today. And in the words of a father who lost his son in the line of service, he said, "Make a place in your heart for those who put service above self." for they understand that freedom requires a sacrifice that the protected will never know. This ringing of the firefighter's bell replicates the sounds heard in days past, when it used to be teletype messages were sent that bore the terrible message that a firefighter had died in the line of service. Please join me in a moment of silence for all those lives lost on September 11th and those lost in the days that followed.
Nine Hoosiers died in the terrorist attacks 1 year ago today. I want to tell you a little bit about them. Colonel Canfield Buddy Boone was a former member of the Milan High School basketball team. He and his wife Linda and their 3 sons lived in Indianapolis for many years while he served in the Indiana National Guard. For the last 2 years, Colonel Boone was on active duty, stationed at the Pentagon. He recently had been promoted to the rank of colonel when American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. Gary Bright was from Muncie, and he earned both his college and graduate degrees here in Indiana. He had lived in New York for approximately 10 years, usually working 2 jobs to make his mark on the world. Describing Gary, a coworker said, "He was one of the hardest working people I have ever met. If anyone deserved success, it was him. He was intelligent, he was warm, and he gave us all advice." 2 weeks before September 11th, Gary started a great new job at the World Trade Center. He was there when the planes hit. Eddie Dillard was a Gary native whose career took him to Virginia, where he had retired with his wife. He was aboard Flight 77 when it crashed into the Pentagon. Brenda Gibson was born and raised in Indianapolis, but had moved to Virginia to take a position as a civilian employee at the Pentagon. And she was there working when Flight 77 crashed into the building. Major Stephen Long was a Cascade native who distinguished himself in the United States Army, serving in Grenada, Desert Shield, and Desert Storm. He was based in Washington and was attending a meeting at the Pentagon when the crash occurred. Lieutenant General Timothy J. Maude, Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel, United States Army, also distinguished himself during his military career. An Indianapolis native, he served in Vietnam, Germany, and Korea. He also served at Fort Benjamin Harrison. He was working at the Pentagon when Flight 77 crashed into the building. Katie Mccloskey was a native of South Bend and a graduate of Indiana University. She worked here in Indianapolis until April of 2001 when she moved to New York, to both a city and a position that she described as awesome. Stacy Peak was born and raised in Tell City. She moved to New York in 1999 when she accepted a broker position with Cantor Fitzgerald, where she worked on the 105th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Her mother, who was ill and could not be with us today, spoke with Stacy for the last time just moments after the first plane crashed into the building. Karen Jude was from Elkhart. She also moved to New York to work for Cantor Fitzgerald. She found happiness and she found love. Her fiance recently wrote to Governor O'Bannon to thank him for remembering Karen today. The 10th Hoosier that we honor here today, Jeanette Winters, was born and raised in Gary and was on her way to joining the highest ranks in the U.S. Marine Corps when she was called to service in the war against terrorism. She was among 7 Marines killed January 9th when a KC-130 tanker plane crashed in Pakistan. She was buried with full military honors in Merrillville next to her mother. The 10 empty chairs that you see in front of us here represent each of these 10 Hoosiers lost on that horrible day a year ago today, or in the case of Jeanette, in fighting the war on terrorism that followed. We remember them and 3,000 others today. We cannot help but grieve with their loved ones.
September 11th will never pass again without a pause to remember the terrible shock that day and the terrible toll that it took. But I challenge all of you to dwell not only on what we lost, but what we have gained. I see those 10 empty chairs, and my heart breaks with those left behind. But I also see more than 300 other chairs and people standing here are filled with those who watched the planes hit, the towers fall, the Pentagon smashed, and they sprang to action. Today, I challenge you, as I challenge myself. Tell your children and other young people the stories of the heroes who stood in the midst of destruction and risk, and in too many cases gave their lives to help others get to safety. Tell your children and others the stories of the officers who ran into the fire to help as others rushed out. Tell the stories of the ordinary Americans on Flight 93 who overcame terrorists on a suicide mission so that others would not die. And tell them of the people who found other ways to help, who reached out to their neighbors to rebuild a nation that will never fall to attacks of hate, and who made sure our foundation remained strong, our hearts remain open, and our land remains free. These are the stories of heroes. 1 year ago today, in a statement to the nation, President Bush rallied Americans with 18 simple words. He said, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America." That statement was etched into Indiana limestone and placed on a wall inside the Pentagon during its reconstruction, where thousands of people pass it every day. Independent Limestone Company of Indiana provided the limestone used to rebuild the Pentagon. Bobby Stone Company, also of Indiana, finished the raw stone and on one special slab inscribed the president's words. And today, they present the state of Indiana with the replica of that limestone, which will stand here on the lawn of this, the People's House, our state capitol.